Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Tuesday. Tuesday is when we usually have arranged marriages.
Yeah.
But today we're doing something special. We're doing arranged divorces. This is where we take people who are getting along really well and we bring them on the show and we just break them up. Right? And they don't have a say in the matter either. Isn't that interesting? What do you think about that in arranged divorce? I'm just kidding. I don't do that.
Yeah, I thought so.
Welcome, everybody. We are getting into a new chapter today. We're all excited about it. If you're new to the show, this is it. This is what we do. We go through the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's an ancient book on Vedic wisdom, highlighting the top of the ladder of our spiritual trajectory, which is pure love of the heart, Bhakti-yogi.
Nice.
Any messages for us today, Kaustubha?
Do I have messages?
Interesting.
You know, one thing I noticed is we're starting to get some emails from people. The Bhagavatam sets are arriving. Remember back in September, we had that Bhadra Purnima where I think about our group sponsored about 55 sets of Srimad Bhagavatam to be distributed out to the world. And I think our people, we had it going both ways, right? Like we had people that were like giving sets. Right. And then we had other people saying, if you want a set, let us know, you know. And
we had sponsors, we had receivers, we had people purchasing. It was like a Srimad Bhagavatam Walmart. People were just coming and going.
Ken Putnam distributed, he sponsored 10 sets.
Ken Putnam sponsored 10 sets. That's impressive.
Yeah, that was incredible, right? And so in any case, I think about 65 of our people are receiving sets. And just yesterday, we started to get some emails for people that have received their sets.
Isn't that beautiful? A person, Ken Putnam, the guy, sponsored. Yeah. He's got some resources, wants to do something good, sponsors 10 sets of Bhagavatams.
Yeah. And those big, beautiful, if you're getting your set now, please write to us and let us know and send us a photo. You know, we'd love that.
Send us photos and we know what we'll post them. Because that's what people do nowadays. They post things and you tag them. And you resend it.
But you can do that, or you can just mail it to us. But we'd love to see it. But some people are sending in the big box. It's a big, beautiful box. You know, it says Srimad Bhagavatam on the side, and you open it up, and all those books.
Big, beautiful box. The box is beautiful too.
Well, it says Srimad Bhagavatam on it, you know, and it's cool. It's nice. When you open it up, all that, you know, beautiful art and spiritual energy. So if you get your set, please let us know.
Yeah. Mara, were you going to read something too? Because people have been writing down things on the Apple podcast, which is good because we get to know you guys, get to know your stories. You give us a little review. And a lot of people read that stuff. And the other one. So if you can go to Apple Podcasts and write down your story, your journey home, because we learned something about you, but we learned something about ourselves when we hear your journey. Mary, you said
we have a few nice reviews that I wanted to share. One person writes, a not to be missed podcast. My days feel incomplete.
I'm not famous.
Not to be missed.
Oh, not to be missed.
My days feel incomplete.
You're famous, Raghu. Don't worry. You're famous.
Don't worry, Raghu.
We all accept that you're very, very famous.
Very famous, Raghu. You're the most famous.
Wait a second. What do you mean I'm not famous?
My days feel incomplete if I haven't listened to Raghunath and Kaustubha discussing the ancient texts of Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. Their energies complement and balance each other out so well, and I love getting to know Mara, Bunky, and Little Karuna as well.
Little Karuna.
These are like our side
Yeah.
side guests. You know what I mean?
For me, this whole year has been steeped in Krishna consciousness, with daily Gita readings, japa meditation, and devotion. It's all just kicked in for me this year. When I heard Raghu on Rich Roll's podcast a few months ago, I started following him on Instagram and then was led to the Wisdom of the Sages podcast, which now ties everything together for me on a daily basis. Everything I've heard, discussed, read has come together for me while listening to this brilliant and incisive podcast. I love all the walk-on guests so much as well. Loved Sanskrit guru Nityananda Das and the story of the poetic meter of the Damodar Astakam. My sincere hope is that your podcast will go from strength to strength. All the best to you both with gratitude.
That's nice. Who's that from?
Really nice.
Pragya?
Prayag.
Okay.
Pragya?
Yeah, it's written Pragya.
Pragya.
Pretty good.
Nice. Nice. Wonderful.
Did you read this one by NHV David? That was a good one too.
You want me to read that one as well, or you want to read it?
Yeah, why don't you read it?
Okay.
That was nice.
Life-saving podcast. Through tear-filled
Life-saving podcast. Let's read that.
Okay.
It's got to be good.
Through tear-filled eyes, I write this review. The gratitude I have and owe these two gentlemen, I can't define. I came to this podcast after my sister told me to listen to Raghu on the Rich Roll podcast.
Rich Roll. There's two Rich Rolls.
Yeah. Rich Roll. Dr. Rich.
Maybe when your book comes out, you can get on Rich Roll again.
Yeah.
There you go. That's the plan.
Yeah.
She said his energy reminds me of you. While listening to the Rich Roll podcast, Raghunath spoke about the God-shaped hole. This statement was very polarizing to me. Due to the term God-shaped hole being used as a lyric in two different songs by a band called Wilco, their lyrics and song have a very deep meaning to me in my sobriety. So hearing someone else use that term was transcendent. I've struggled with addiction issues most of my life, which I'm proud to say I've overcome. However, several years ago, I had a major health crisis. This, now that I look back at it, was a Krishna miracle, letting me realize how important life is and what we do in our life. Bhakti to me is the yellow bird I've been waiting for. I never knew this life was possible. Thank you for all that you do. I'm truly grateful.
Yellow
was
bird.
Beautiful. That was beautiful. A yellow bird. Is that an expression? The yellow
Never heard
bird
it
I've been
before.
waiting for.
It's
I'm
its
going to
own
use that
poetic
today.
expression.
I'm going to use that
Yellow
today.
bird. Okay. Yellow bird is always nice to see.
I liked how the one before mentioned like sideline people like Mara, Bunky, and Karuna. It's sort of like the Gilligan's Island. If like if I'm Gilligan and you're Skipper, then maybe Mara's Marianne. Go there. Bunky's like the professor. Karuna is.
Bunky might be
Mrs.
Ginger
Howell.
back in his.
I think Karuna might be the professor.
if he had to play one role, right?
He lost Raghu with
He's
that one.
Raghunath. Come on, man, pull it together.
No, you're glamorous.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh my God.
I mean, if a drag queen was going to do one character on the show, which one would it do?
Ginger.
Obviously, it would do Ginger. Right? Yeah.
And Mara's definitely Marianne. Karuna, I just can't fit her in this thing.
Professor.
Though.
She knows all these slokas.
She's the spiritual scientist is the professor.
Okay, that's true. You're right. All right, we got to get moving, Raghunath. Come on.
Okay. Ken Putnam can be the Mr. Howell though for donating those 10 cents.
That's true. Good one.
Oh my God!
Chant the mantras, Raghu.
Take us.
Chant
Take us away.
Chant the mantras.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim yasam tato jayam mudirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being. Unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. And to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki, by regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Hena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances at their lotus feet. Oh, we are doing a quick announcement. We are doing Sweet Baby Krishna tonight at 7:30. It's been really good, Kaustubha. It's been really
You guys
good.
got like
It's,
a whole thing. I'm a little jealous here. It's like
you
you're
know
way
what?
out there in the
Upstate
country. And you got more going
it's a
on.
very organic Sangha we have going, because there's Mara, and she lives close, and Bunky's with me wherever I go. He's my fun little drag queen shadow, and
Bobby.
and Bobby and Frankie, they live right next to where Mara works. It's just very organic, and then other people.
You're getting together like every
join in.
night or something?
And whenever we get together, whenever we want to do Sweet Baby Krishna, we're like, why not just do it together? It's more fun.
And Mara brings food over?
And not, well, it depends.
Sometimes
If she
Bunky
comes here, we
cooks.
cook.
Bunky cook. And you sing Damodarastika together.
We did last
And
night.
offer lamps.
Offer candles.
That's beautiful.
It was great.
Nice. So you got together last night and did
Yeah.
Sweet
And tonight
Baby.
we're gonna do it again.
Nice. Maybe I'll join you.
Yeah. You should join us. It's
7:30?
fun.
7:30?
7:30.
It's fun, and we're reading from the Garga Samhita. Fun, great, joyous stories, but with this great depth. What was our depth last night, Mara? We're talking about something really
Well,
deep.
we got into all the different rasas.
The
Krishna
rasas.
Bhakti and how it's more nuanced than Ram Bhakti.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Talk about how.
We also-
Yeah, we're talking about why Krishna Bhakti is so darn attractive, and it's a lot different than Ram Bhakti, Vishnu Bhakti, etc.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where we went yesterday.
Because Sweet Baby Krishna is Akila Rasamrita Murti. It's the form that can reciprocate with all the different rasas.
Yeah. Well, come on, join that party. If you'd like to join that party, we do it through Patreon. You got to be a Patreon member. And you know what that costs? Thousands of dollars per month for our VIP package. Or you can pay $1 a month. And either way, you get the same exact thing. Thousands of dollars a month or $1 a month gets you in the Patreon party. Okay. And then you get the codes to come on in. And we do it. And there's lots of back episodes too. So we are reading today from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3. Chapter 27.
That's right.
We may have a whole new chapter.
We're in a new
Exciting.
chapter. This is called Understanding Material Nature. It's all about the cosmic egg.
The cosmic egg.
No, we got through that. This is you're gonna like this chapter, Raghunath. Right off the bat, right out of the gates, this is like Morpheus Neo stuff. This is Matrix stuff. This is
Well, one of our sanghas last week, guess what? I had
You watched
Bunky
The
on one
Matrix?
side, Mara on one side. They say, you got to watch The Matrix. So I gave 1 hour and I watched half The Matrix because that's all I could do in one sitting.
you did it all together, or you did it alone?
We all did it together. It was
Okay,
part of our upstate sangha.
so
fun.
you're a bit more familiar now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so then just like
It's a great movie.
it's a great movie. There are a few scenes there. Two scenes that really, stay with me. Is one the dojo scene, and two the the lady in the red dress scene, right?
Yeah,
But
they were
bo-
great.
Both of those scenes are where Morpheus is explaining to Neo that you are in a virtual world, and what you need, but you need to understand that you're not.
Right.
That you need to elevate the way that you think. You need to elevate your thinking to an entirely new plane, and when you do, then the laws that are binding you here, or the laws that are
Right.
holding you down, you will
Right.
transcend them, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's happening here in this chapter, right? We've got the Morpheus is here in the form of Kapila Dev, and the Neo is here in the form of Devahuti, and right off the bat, Let's look right out of the gate. Text 1. Let's hear it, Raghunath. Good
Text
instructions
1.
here.
The personality of Godhead, Kapila, continues. So we're still hanging with Kapila, the incarnation of God here.
Mm-hmm.
When the living entity is thus unaffected by the gunas, the modes of material nature,
Yeah.
because they are, because
He is.
he is
They are.
unchanging and does not claim proprietorship. Right? These are the qualifications of the liberated soul. Unchanging, does not claim proprietorship. He remains apart from the reactions of the gunas, the modes, although abiding in the material body. Just as the sun remains aloof from its reflection in the water. Great analogy.
You like
Great
that analogy?
The sun looks like it's in the water. Did you ever do that? Like look at the water. Sometimes people take photos of it, take photos of a reflection on a placid lake, and it looks like you're actually, but you're not. Then you see, actually, no, it's exactly a reflection. That's exactly what's going on.
Right. And this is mirrors, we could say. Another verse earlier in Bhagavatam, if we go back in the second canto, I believe it was, where may have been in the third canto. Gotta look that up. But in any case, Vidura approaches Maitreya, and he had, more or less the question that he asks is, if our nature, right, is we're by nature Satchidananda, we're full, it means we're knowing, right? Ignorance is something external to us. If our nature is blissful, if our nature is all-knowing, well, how do we lose touch with that nature, right? It's said that the soul is unaffected by time, right? It says that that powerful force has no effect on it, right?
Right.
So how is it that if at one point we're in touch with our nature and at another point it seems that we've lost our nature, right? We're no longer blissful. We're no longer all-knowing. We're confused. How did we lose touch with that nature? And the way that Maitreya responds to him is almost the same analogy. He says the moon instead of the sun, but it's the same thing, right? He says that the moon, if you look at water, like say a lake or a pond, and there's a breeze that's making it the water tremble, and if you're looking at the reflection of the moon on that water, well, then you might say, oh, it appears that the moon's taken on the nature of the water, which is fluid and moving and shifting, right? Where really the moon is still situated in the sky and is steady. But it's our misidentification of the reflection of the moon on the water that has us confused. In a similar way, the nature of the soul never changes. It's actually never affected by ignorance. It's never affected by time. It's eternal. But when we identify the mind as being the self, and now the mind is made out of matter, the mind is very subtle matter. The law of matter, here's the fundamental law of matter, Raghunath. You want it? You ready?
Yeah, what's the fundamental
This is the
law?
kind of thing Morpheus
Tell
would
me,
say
Morpheus.
to Neo, right?
You're Morpheus.
Okay. The
Right, Mara? Is he Morpheus or what?
I'm not
Yeah.
Morpheus. But the fundamental law of material energy is that it's always moving, always shifting, always changing. And the fundamental law of spirit is that it's always steady, it's changeless. Right? So when you identify the changing as the changeless, then it seems we've lost touch, right? So we tend to identify with our mind. We live in our mind. We think that thoughts and the desires in our mind are us. But what the yogi does is they step back from the mind and they observe the mind and they realize all those thoughts aren't me. What's going on in that mind is something separate. It's a machine of its own that's controlling
It's actually
me.
unbelievable. It's actually, if you really to understand what we're saying here, it's not even like, we wouldn't even be able to digest it. Like, you're not a human.
Yep.
That's just reality. Mara, look at Mara.
You're in a
That's
human
not
body.
Mara.
You're not a human, Mara.
You're not a human, Mara. We're here to tell you this today. This is part of our Divorce Tuesday is tell people what they are Tuesdays. You're not a human. You're not a woman.
But actually, you're more than a human, and that's the thing, right? In other words, you by nature, you're not subject to the human frailties. But because
that's good news,
right? Because we're identifying with the human body and the human mind.
Hey, you don't like something about your face? Like I got a very big nose. I've got like I'm collecting chins here. I don't know if anyone's noticed that, but anyway, if you don't like something about your face, I got some great news for you. You're not your head. That head that you don't like, maybe, perhaps, in the morning, in the mirror, It's not you. How good news
Okay.
about it? That's good news. And if there is something you like about yourself, I got some bad news for you. That's not you either. There's
Tiny's gonna
something
take it
more
away.
to us than flesh.
Yeah.
There's something much more to us than flesh. We're not the flesh. We're spiritual beings that have flesh, that have rented flesh for a few decades, maybe a half a century, maybe a century if we're lucky.
So the yogi is trying to do this, right? A lot of meditational practices involve this dynamic of observing the mind, right? And through the process of observing the mind, the realization begins to become more firmly rooted in that I'm not the mind. I'm observing the mind. So therefore, I am not subject to the frailties of the mind or the body. And so again, this analogy speaks to that. Let's hear it again. And but not only that, you see, in a sense here, Neo is asking, or Morpheus is asking Neo, take your thinking to a higher plane, right? Realize that you are not bound the way that you think you are. That's what's happening, like in that dojo scene, right? Where he's saying, don't think you're faster than me. Just be faster. Like he says, don't think about hitting me. Just hit me, And he's trying to tell him that there's other laws here, that, or you're thinking you're bound by the laws here, but you're not. So he says, like, what are you waiting for? Don't think that you're just, you're faster than this. And don't, he says, stop trying to hit me and hit me. It's like, get your thinking beyond where it is right now. And so that's what's happening here. But he's also giving the clue to how where that lies, where like fundamentally that lies. So he says, when the living entity is thus unaffected by the modes of material nature, you can just basically replace modes of material nature with matrix, right? Because that's what
the matrix of material nature.
It's the matrix of the material nature. It has three different varieties of energy that are moving in different combinations, and that's the matrix that we're moving through. So when the living entity is thus unaffected by the matrix, right, because they are unchanging, that's their nature. They're beyond the matrix. You're not changing the way that the matrix is changing, because they're unchanging and do not claim proprietorship. That's the illusion in the matrix, right? Claiming proprietorship. I want it for me. It's mine. Then they remain apart from the reactions of the modes from the matrix, although abiding in a material body, although operating in the matrix, right? Just as the sun remains aloof from the reflection on the water, the sun is situated in the sky. It has a reflection on the water. People identify that reflection as being the sun, but it's affected by the nature of the water. Now, it's really interesting in this verse. Well, let's read the commentary. Let's read the commentary. It's good stuff here.
Alrighty. In the previous chapter, Lord Kapiladev has concluded that simply by beginning the discharge of bhakti, or devotional service, one can attain attachment and transcendental knowledge for understanding the science of God. Here, the same principle is confirmed. A person who is detached from the gunas, the modes of material nature, remains just like the sun reflected on the water. When the sun is reflected on the water, the movement of the water or the coolness or the unsteadiness of the water cannot affect the actual sun. Similarly, Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha, when one engages fully in the activities of Bhakti Yoga, they become just like the sun reflected on the water. Although a devotee appears to be in the material world, actually, they are in the transcendental world.
We were talking about that on Saturday, right?
Yeah,
Remember?
that's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the question.
Although a devotee appears to be in the material world, actually they're in the transcendental world. As the reflection of the sun appears to be on the water, but is many millions of miles away from the water, so one engaged in the Bhakti Yoga process is nirguna, or unaffected by the qualities of material nature. This is beautiful, huh? This is,
great
and you know, it's interesting because you're doing it. If everybody is like chanting some japa today, doing some hearing every day, have some meditation time to get closer to Krishna every day, what's happening is first you get some exciting, you get some excitement and you get some bliss, you get some joy. Maybe you even chopped out some bad habits. And that you feel automatically better from doing that. What happens is after a while, you're like, wow, this feels great. This feels good. This feels good. But sometimes you hit a lull and then you start feeling like, is this doing anything? And you don't realize it's doing anything. Just like if you're driving in a car going 50, it's like, am I going fast? Am I going fast? Try jumping out of the moving car. You'll realize how fast you're going, right? And so it's the same thing. Bhakti yoga, it's happening, but it's happening like the hands of a clock sometimes. They don't appear to move, but we're actually changing. And and here it's saying straight up, it's like you're not even in the material world anymore. You are nirguna. You're not affected by the material nature anymore. And by the way, this is when we are 100% engaged with all our thoughts, etc. Then we're actually not even in the material world. Even our body's considered spiritual. But on the path, what we're doing is we're just hearing knowledge, applying knowledge, hearing knowledge, applying knowledge, hearing knowledge, and applying knowledge. And therefore, it's like you can't criticize a person who's dirty if they're walking into the shower. Of course, we're going to have some residue. Isn't that true? You know, we've got some faults. We've got some shortcomings. We've got some stuff I'm carrying over from my previous bad habits, my samskaras, from baggage. I'm carrying baggage from a previous lifetime, you know, and we're dealing with it. But guess what? We're on the process walking into the shower. So don't beat yourself up if you feel like, God, I've got too much of a load to carry. Guess what? It's all changing. It's all changing. It may not change as quick as you want, but we are we are in the active process of transformation, and this stuff really works. I'm not just saying this. I've got nothing to gain by sharing this. I get 10% of the Hare Krishna movement's income every year.
Okay, but what's changing is not the self, but what's changing is the programming in the mind. Whereas the self, like the sun, is unchanging, right?
There you go.
And so, so let's continue the commentary because it's going to hit on this point.
Okay. A vicara means without change. It is confirmed in the Gita that each and every living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and thus his eternal position is to cooperate or to dovetail his energy with the Supreme Lord. That is his unchanging position. As soon as he employs his energy and activities for sense gratification, this change of position is called vicara.
Okay, let's stop right there. This change of
Powerful
position is
stuff.
called vicara. Yeah, you know, this is, you know, that this word uses this verse uses the word avikara, which means changeless. So it's saying that the nature of the self is changeless. In a sense, the sun is changeless as compared to its reflection on water. So the self is changeless. But sometimes it appears that the self becomes changed, right? In other words, it seems like I'm happy one day and I'm sad the next, you know. You know, everything's exciting one day, the next day everything seems boring, you know. We go through these ups and downs. Why are we going through these ups and downs? If I'm changeless, I'm going through it. So here the word vicara means that something becomes changed. It seems like our nature has changed. You know, there's been some kind of shift. But this is it's interesting language. It's the same language, and Prabhupada may even be noticed that word there and thought back to the writings of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, this very important teacher in our lineage, where in his book Jaiva Dharma he speaks. You know, this Jaiva Dharma means the dharma, or you could say the essential nature of the self.
The dharma of the soul. Sort of a great title, isn't it?
Yeah, the essential nature of the soul.
That would be a great name for a book. I mean, it is a book.
It is. That's what
talking about. But I'm just saying, if you were to translate that into English, the dharma of the soul.
Yeah. So there, you know, it says that every vastu. These are he lays out some terminology in that book. He's saying vastu means an object. That every object, yes, and every vastu, every object, has its svadharma, right? Or sometimes it uses the term svabhava. It has its own nature, right? How it's designed, what it's designed for, what is its essence that can't be removed from it, right? And so like they say, like, if the vastu, if the object is water, then what is the svadharma of water?
Wetness.
Yeah, you could say like liquidity, right? It's like
I was going to say liquidity second, but my first
either
one was
way.
wetness.
I mean,
but yes.
I mean, whiteness. I mean, it's the same thing more or less, but like it flows, it moves, right? Now,
Yeah.
Sometimes you take something like you take water and you expose it to something external, an external force that seems to transform it. And so water, if you expose it to a very
Power
cold
washer.
well, no, I was going to say a cold
like a
temperature.
Okay.
Yeah, when it comes into contact with another powerful force, like let's say cold, then it seems that water loses its nature, and it seems like it loses its essential nature, its liquidity. But actually, it's always water there, and that nature of it can become revealed again. We just have to somehow remove it from the influence that seems to be changing its nature, right?
I like where you're going. It's a
Okay,
good analogy.
Yeah,
I don't
and then
use
it
that
can
one. That's a good analogy. Sometimes
And
you
then-
come up with something I just never hear before,
That's
and it's
not
been
me.
in you for a while. I know
Prabhupada
it's
would
not
use
you.
that.
I get
It might
that, but
even
I
be
just-
in Jiva Dharma. I'm not even sure that they might have used it
I
there.
like it. I'm going to keep it.
Okay. So there's that story once. My guru wrote about it in the book Servant of the Servant, but he was in London with Prabhupada, and they were walking, and Prabhupada had his cane, and every time they saw, there were like these frozen puddles on the ground. Every time he saw a puddle, Prabhupada would like break the puddle with that cane. And then he spoke on this, he used this example, that, about the nature of water had been lost because of coming into contact with the cold, but it's just waiting to be returned to its original nature. And again, it's not exactly returned. It's always there. The sun is a more appropriate example of that. But the idea here is that we, as a soul, we have a nature, and that nature is blissful, and that nature is all-knowing, etc. But when we come in contact with the material energy, it seems that we've lost that nature. And that's called vicara, that transformation. The transformation of something from its original nature to something appearing, that appears to be different.
Okay, Kaustubha, here's the $1 million question for you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm in the matrix, completely lost, walking around thinking I'm the doer, trying to like control things, own things, possess people, riddled with excitement and fear. How do I get out of the matrix? Okay. Forget the movie now. I'm in real life. I get it. This is the matrix. It's nothing real. I've been chasing things that haven't been satisfying me my entire life. I've got a God-shaped hole. I've got some career that's got nothing, completely disconnected with spirituality. What the hell do I do? Get me out of the matrix.
Well, that's right here in this verse and in the coming verses. It says, when the living entity is thus unaffected by the modes of material nature, because he is unchanging and does not claim proprietorship. Okay, there's a big hint right there, like claiming. Now, Prabhupada, in this verse and in a couple verses later, he's translating the word akara to mean free of proprietor. Like kara means, generally, most people would translate it as free of doership, right? Like they don't identify as the doer. I'm not the doer. But Prabhupada is also saying I'm not the proprietor. So it seems like the two are, there's kind of an intimate connection between those two. You know what I found fascinating in that Matrix scene, the lady in the red dress scene?
Oh yeah, you see some lady in the red.
That scene.
Remind me, or remind the people who haven't seen it. But remind me.
So what's happening is Neo has now realized that he's living in. Has always been living in a virtual world, and Neo is instructing him more deeply in this idea. And so Morpheus takes him into a special virtual training world, right? That's not the Matrix, but it feels like the Matrix, which feels like reality. And they're walking down a street. And as they're walking, if you look closely at the scene, you'll notice that every single person, it's like they're walking on a city sidewalk, and there's lots of people walking at them. And they're walking through them together. And as they're walking through them, Morpheus is speaking this philosophy to him. And everybody in that scene is dressed in either black or white, or a combination of black and white, right? The whole, everybody is dressed in black and white. and Morpheus is going on about like how this is unreal, you know, how we're living in this virtual world, and you know, you're looking at people and you're seeing, you know, people of all different you know, occupations, and they're doing all different things and this and that, but actually this is all, you know, everything that you're seeing is unreal. And he's saying this whole thing, and then as he's speaking, one person is dressed differently, right? One person's not wearing black or white, and it's a woman, kind of like a Marilyn Monroe type, right? Like with the, you know, with the hair like that, and kind of like in that style. She's wearing a tight red short dress.
Yeah.
And she's walking right at Neo, right? She's walking their way, and as they're walking by, she's kind of smiling at him, you know, in a seductive way.
Yeah.
And Morpheus is going on with the philosophy about how this whole thing is unreal. As she's walking by, she's looking and smiling seductively at Neo. And then as she passes him, he turns around. He's looking over his shoulder at her. She's looking back at him. And right at that moment, Morpheus says, "Are you listening to me, Neo?" And then he turns around, and Neo turns around and he says, "Are you looking at the woman in the red dress?" And Neo turns around, and right then Morpheus says, "Look again." Right? And he turns around, and in that moment, that woman is gone, and who's standing directly in front of him holding a gun to his face is one of these Men in Black agents.
Right.
Right? And then he says, "Freeze." And then whoever was running that virtual training ground that they were in froze the frame right there. Okay? Now, this is really interesting, right? Because, in other words, it's getting right to what we're talking about here is like doership or proprietorship, right? In other words, Neo saw that attractive woman. And what that does, you know, to someone who's an illusion is makes them think, I want it, right? I want her, right? It's a sense of proprietorship. I want to have that, right? Or you could say a sense of doership. It's that illusion that keeps one trapped. So, but what happened was, what Morpheus showed him was, look at you. You're trying to enjoy something that's an illusion, right? I'm right now I'm speaking to you information that can give you liberation. But you're concentrating on enjoying something that's an illusion. Well, you think the illusion is enjoyable? Look again. And when he looks, his greatest fear is right in front of him, right? Because he's already gone through things with these agents. Neo is afraid of these agents, right?
Right.
And so he says, look again, and he looks in that agent with a gun right at his face, which must have been very shocking for him in that moment, right? So this is the idea, you know. In other words, we're moving through this world, and we all have our ladies in the red dress in one way or another, right? The things that we want, right? The things that captivate us, and the things that we think will make us happy, the things that we're chasing after, right? And we think they will bring us happiness. Look again. This attachment, this sense of proprietorship, this sense of doership is actually causing you fear as well. Right? Attachment to the body is causing us fear. You know, attachment to possessions is causing us fear. It's you know, the two are intrinsically tied together. And so here, what Kapila Deva is saying to Devahuti is he's saying that when you let go of the sense of proprietorship, or the sense of doership, can also be translated that way. We talked about how we're not the doer a week or two ago, right? That again, like, you know, Neo's moving through that matrix, but really he's just sitting back in their spaceship, you know, going through a virtual reality. So he's really not doing anything in that world.
What are your red dresses, Kaustubha?
Oh, there's so many. There's
Are
so
there?
Many. Yeah.
Mara, what do you think? Does Kaustubha have any red dresses? Nah, I don't think.
I don't think so.
Have any red
He's not
dresses?
distracted. He's not very distracted.
Okay, so
He gets distracted by like, whatever my deity's gonna wear today. You know, he's thinking that's how he's distracted.
I'm not so pure. If only I
What
were.
am I gonna think? What am I gonna
Okay, so
red.
let's go on to the next verse. And let's maybe a few verses. Let's read here. They're all really good. Text
Really
2.
good stuff. Text 2. 1 second. Switch into other mode here. Okay.
What do you do in between when we read verses? Like you close
Well,
everything down or something like that? Why is it still sitting right there on your screen?
I'm thinking deeply of God.
Okay. I'm sure you are.
When the soul is under the spell of material nature and false ego, right? I love that. The spell, like the material, it's like a witch has put a spell. When the soul is under the spell of material nature and the false ego, identifying the body as the self, they become absorbed in all material activities. And by the influence of the false ego, they think that they are the proprietor of everything.
Okay. Read it
It's
again,
amazing,
please.
huh?
Yeah.
Huh?
Read it again, please.
When the soul is under the spell of material nature and false ego, identifying his body as the self, he becomes absorbed in material activities. And by the influence of false ego, he thinks that he is the proprietor of everything.
I'm identifying with this body as me. That's the influence of false ego. This is me, right? It's not. It's just a temporary thing that I'm existing within. But then it'll be gone and I'll continue. But I'm thinking I'm this body, and I'm thinking that those things in relation to this body are what brings me happiness and or distress. Now I'm lost in the matrix. Now I'm confused, right? I'm lost in the virtual reality. And I think this is mine. This is my body. This is my house. This is my family, right? This is my money. These are my possessions. I'm the proprietor of everything, right? These are all the things that I own, right? These are all the things that are connected to me, that are mine. Now you're deeply lost in that matrix. Okay, text 3.
It's good. The conditioned soul, therefore, transmigrates into different species of life, higher
That
or lower.
means they're accepting different forms within the matrix.
Right. Because of his association with the gunas, or the modes of material nature, or the matrix, whatever you want to call it. Unless he is relieved of material activities, they have to accept this position because of their faulty work. So let's take Mara, for example. She's lost in the matrix, bumping her head, running into walls, getting her feet caught in quicksand. And then she gets into bhakti yoga and starts to change everything. But she doesn't really change much of what she's doing. She takes her butcher shop of a kitchen.
Okay.
A butcher shop of a kitchen, and then it slowly transforms into a temple of God, like a deity kitchen, so to speak, where all her staff is chanting and her food is, highly refined vegetarian food, and she's cooking with pure consciousness. She completely eliminates all the nonsense talk of her employees that were just talking about sex and partying all day while they're cooking. They're putting their consciousness in that food, and Mary just says that's over. That's over from now on. You're only chanting the 1,000 names of Vishnu while you're cooking the food. Boss, period. And then everything's starting to change. Her kitchen's starting to change. Her consciousness starts to change. She's offering the food. And sure enough, she came over yesterday and she said, here's pie, vegan, gluten-free pie I made. It's been offered with love and devotion. I was like, should I offer it? She's like, it's been offered.
It's been offered.
It's been
So
offered.
that's the thing here, right? Let's look at this verse again. There's a term in this verse, karma doshai. Right? Karma doshai. Karma means
Dosha.
one's
Is
actions.
it like a dosha?
No.
Dosa?
It means faulty actions, right?
Okay.
So karma doshai, actions that are faulty. In other words, actions that are creating some kind of problem for us.
They're keeping
right?
they're keeping you in the matrix.
Keeping you locked in the matrix. So
So Mara didn't do anything different. She just refined what she did. That
transformed it, yeah. So
Transformed
let's see. The conditioned soul therefore transmigrates into different species of life, higher and lower. That's according to how we behaved in the matrix. We take on the next form in the matrix, right? Because of the association with the material modes, with the matrix, unless that person is relieved of material activities, unless I stop buying into the matrix, then you have to accept new positions in the matrix due to your activities within the matrix, due to your faulty work there. Now, what you just gave is a great example of how, there are two ways that one can approach this then. One is to not participate in the matrix, right? Like walk away from the virtual home, walk away from the virtual family, walk away from the virtual job and the virtual society, because all that keeps convincing me, right?
Right.
It's like, it's hard enough realizing this is in the matrix, but if you keep sending women in red dresses past me, it's going to be all that much harder, right?
Yeah.
So So let me walk away from all of that. And certain yogic paths recommended that, right? That you would renounce, literally karma sannyas, that you renounce your works in this world and you renounce your social responsibilities and social connections in this world.
And
You
in
walk
Bhakti
away from it.
yoga, we say, good luck with that.
Well, and in
Because-
karma yoga and bhakti yoga, right? Yeah, is that you can take your karma, and rather than it working against you, karma doshai, you can actually use it as a path towards realizing I'm in the matrix, right? Towards clarifying that you're in the matrix. And so you gave a great example of like, Mara's doing more or less the same thing that she would do before, but now she's doing it in a whole different state of consciousness.
Different consciousness, no animals.
Yeah. And not just like, but essentially, there's that. That's part of it. But more essential, what makes it transformational, is that at one point I'm doing it for myself so that I can get money to buy the things that I want to be happy in life. And in the other one, I'm doing it for God, right? I'm not doing it for myself. Part of that meant, okay, well then I'm going to have to take the killing of animals out of the equation. But the idea is I've lost the idea that buying things in the matrix is going to make me happy. I realize it's all illusion. I'm going to still operate within the matrix, but I do it all for God. I'm not doing it for me anymore. I'm doing it for God. And that's what transforms the nature of the activity and what transforms the way that it affects our mind, the way that it affects our consciousness.
I was reading in my Bhagavad Gita class, plug for my Bhagavad Gita class every day at noon. Sometimes I'm late, but you can check my Instagram at Raghunath Yogi. I'm on chapter 14 today, but chapter 13 have this great lists of what is knowledge and everything else is illusion. It goes to, you know what I'm talking about, right? I think that's verse 12 in chapter 13.
Yeah,
but one of the things
8 through 12.
Good. You're good.
Come on, 8 through 12.
One of the things was entanglement with children and family or spouse and stuff like that.
Home,
and
family,
so
their children and the rest. Yeah.
And the rest. It's like that Gilligan's Island thing. And the rest.
You're making connections right now.
Oh God. But anyway, so it said like, spouse, children, and the rest, and to not be entangled with that. So, and I gave two perspectives, and one was perspective Jnana Yoga. How do you get disentangled from your kids? You get the hell out. You just move. You go to the forest. I'm disentangled with my husband, my wife. I'm out of here, and you just cut yourself. And of course, if you were to walk away from all your home responsibilities, you would actually cut yourself off and you'd be relieved in some ways. And it would harden your heart and you'd think, I don't own these people anyway, whatever. In Bhakti Yoga, we don't do that. We actually work in the world, but cultivate that consciousness. That's why Mara doesn't have to say, you know what, it's over, I'm out of the kitchen. She just has to transform what she does. And look, she's a stellar example. She just switched the consciousness of I'm the proprietor of this place. This Simon's catering van is not mine. I will give it to Raghunath now. Okay, stuff like that. I've just give away. But the idea of that proprietorship, I don't own. I'm just here to give love. Love is the only thing I own.
You see, that's the key to karma yoga is that the person that walks away from, and by the way, those verses, 8 through 12 in chapter 13 of the Bhagavad Gita, it's a long list. Right.
It's a good list. Listen to my thing I put up on Instagram yesterday. Okay. Chapter 13.
We'll do.
Okay.
We'll do.
Not you. I'm checking them. You don't have to listen to anything I say. I'm not so smart.
but I've heard certain commentaries say that like some of those items are meant for some types of yogis and practitioners and other items are meant for other types. So in other words, when it says that, what does it say exactly? Detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, right? So
and the rest.
So some people will entirely walk away from it. Otherwise, you can transform it. But what you're saying is the key, right? The key is that I'm not doing this for me. This business that I have, this number one catering business, I used to do it for the prestige, right? I'm number one in Columbia County, right? And then when I walked down the street of Chatham, New York, it was like, whoa,
Oh, when Mara walks down the street, people are stopping her left and right. Are you the one? Are you the one who's number one?
And she's boxes too.
And she boxes.
She's incredible. Yeah. but you know, we do things for prestige, we do things for money, we do things for personal motivation. The karma yogi's doing it for God. And you know, the example we use sometimes for this too is like, you know, an average citizen, you know, pulls the trigger of a gun, you know, points a gun at someone for their money or to silence them for some reason, kills them. You've committed a crime. Now you're bound by the laws of society, right? And you'll be placed in jail. Those same laws don't apply when you do the exact same activity, but selflessly. In other words, say like a police officer, to protect the innocent, has to kill someone. They did the exact same activity, but the laws don't apply to them because they didn't do it for a selfish purpose. They did it on behalf of the higher power. And so now Mara's working for the higher power, right? Like, I don't do this for the prestige of being number one. I do it to please God, the higher power. And the laws, which are all created by the higher power, they no longer apply. They don't affect her anymore. Right?
Good show today. Today.
Are we done?
Yeah, Mara, you got any takeaways?
I do. I have some good ones today.
Okay.
How about that one I just put up? Let's say that one. That's a good one too.
We all have red dresses in our life. Notice your red dresses. Those are Raghu's.
Notice the red dress. Notice your red dresses, right?
What are my
Notice
red
your red
dresses?
dresses. That's a big one.
Yeah. It's all changing. We're transforming our programming. Look again at the illusions that you think are enjoyable. Our attachments are causing our fears.
Look again, because that's what Morpheus said, right? Look again.
Yeah.
Look again.
Did Morpheus say that? Look again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Said, look again.
Yeah. Well,
You're
we
looking
say
at
on the
lady in
show,
red
we
dress?
say,
look again.
we say, think it through.
Think it through.
Think it through.
Look again.
Look
Yeah,
again.
well, that's a good point because, right, you're thinking my enjoyment lies there. Think it through. Look again. Actually,
where
all
does
that
it
you
end
fear
up,
is
people?
also lying there too. Like it, Raghu. Okay, connections.
I'm thinking like a Morpheus.
Take your thinking to a higher plane.
There we go.
You don't
Okay,
need to
that's good.
disentangle from the matrix. Just cultivate a higher consciousness.
Okay.
You don't
Let
need.
go
You
of-
do need to disentangle.
Well, I mean, in other words, you can still operate within the matrix,
Yeah, you
but
can
all right,
operate
I gotcha.
You can't judge someone for being dirty if they're walking in the shower.
Mhm.
Good news, you are not your head and your chins.
all right.
Not my chins. Woohoo! That's my T-shirt. I'm not these chins. My chin collection. Did you like that, Mara?
When are you going to watch the rest of it?
Tonight. Maybe.
Okay. Have you gotten to the part where they meet the Oracle?
I can't remember. I started
Just got
falling
to that
asleep.
part and Raghu was
They're
falling
both
asleep.
punching me in the
He was falling
shoulders.
asleep at that point?
Yeah, they're both punching. I tell you the time I was in the car with Sachin Mirage and Banan and Dini. Mara's gonna laugh. Did I tell you this story, Kaustubha?
I don't know.
No, we were driving late at night, and I was driving. Maharaj, and Banan and Dini's in the back seat. And then she started like.
Oh,
her
yeah, you
hand-
told me that. You're falling asleep. Yeah.
She put her hand on my shoulder. She started massaging me. I was like, "Oh, that's weird.
Is
Why
this, is this
why is
proper?
this nice woman massaging me
In front of her guru,
I was like,
sannyasi
right
guru?
in front of her guru. I was like, this is very strange. And all of a sudden, Sachin Mara started massaging me. I was like, well, this is getting weirder. And then I realized I'm like falling asleep at the wheel.
Yeah,
I think
there's
those,
a reason
you know,
they're doing this.
Yeah, they're trying to save their lives, keeping me awake. I tell you, those Teslas that drive themselves, a good investment for a person like me that is always falling asleep on the regular.
I went to the DMV yesterday,
Yeah?
and I realized I haven't driven a car at least since 2005, probably since 2002.
You're such a New Yorker.
Right?
You're such a New Yorker, man. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. What a fun show
Oh, you know, we
today.
could do a whole show on the DMV. Maybe we talk about that tomorrow.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Start
place.
off that
Talk
one
about
where
the
the lady has to
Matrix.
take pictures of my head 5 times. Remember that one? Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Hey, Patreon party tonight. Sweet Baby Krishna, 7:30. Tonight we're reading from the Garga Samhita. If you want to get in on that party, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. Kali Columbia is happening, and it's going to be a party in itself. And what makes that one even more fun is if you want to stay longer, we have back-to-back, the front end and the back end. We have two other very spiritual, Krishna conscious, yogi-like programs. We have a Kirtan Academy, and we have our Yin, restorative, and Bhakti module. So there's 3 modules. Wisdom of the Sage is right in the middle. If you sign up for 2, you get $200 off each one. So you get $400 off right that. But we want everybody to come if you're interested in going. There's some scholarships as well. And so just reach out to us. We want to encourage a transcendental getaway where people can go and uplift their consciousness and really just come back to the world and give it back to other people. And that's how we're going to spread this love around. Thanks everybody for joining us. Shall we dance? Shall we?